everyone, and welcome to another episode of Entertainment
Dudes.
That's right, I'm your host, Jason Crossman, Director Dude, and with me to my right here is Cameron Cornelius.
Cam, the voiceover dude.
I'm sorry.
How you doing?
Yes.
Yeah,
good. You have
what?
something different going on. It looks like you have three pairs of glasses here.
Oh, no, I'm just being me. That's whatever.
Well, I thought the doctor
here's
told you could
I
see
figure
better.
out. Yeah, and if one pair of glasses can make you see better, I figured three could just make you see 3 times as better.
That makes sense.
Just go all out. Go all out. Right, that's what you have to do in this business, right?
Oh, wait. There it was. I saw it. We got a really special guest with us today. A lot of times we've had actors, we've had behind the scenes, we've had voiceover, but today we got an opportunity to have a fellow director on the set. Mragendra is going to be joining us today. Yes, and he's going to tell you a little bit about his name, which I think is actually a very, very exciting story. Most people's names are not a story point, but in this case his is, and I'm excited. So he's started off in IT and has moved his way into directing, and it's taken him a number of years. Welcome to the show!
Hi, thanks for having me.
We always unceremoniously drop people into the show. I never know when Cam's going to do it, so thanks for joining us.
That's really good. Yeah. That's the way to do it.
Yes, that's right. It's very unceremonious, as I already said. But so we were talking really briefly about just really quickly about your first of all, where you're from, your name, how you got started into IT and then transition to film. That's exciting. So tell us a little bit about.
But let's start off with what you do.
Okay, well, I do write and direct. Let's put it that way. I do write and direct. I am also foraying into producing. However, right now my main focus is writing and directing. I have a few projects. One film is out right now called Normal, which we're going to go through it. And I have a couple projects in the works right now. So that's the bird's eye view of all the stuff I'm working on.
And we'll dig into that. But Jason was asking about your name. So let's talk about that. The story behind it.
The story behind the name. So name is Mragendra. And since I was a kid, I had to explain, or I have to tell people how to say it correctly. Especially in US and in Western speaking, in English speaking countries, the G is confused for soft G instead of hard G, because G before that vowel is always as a jar, as a gender and stuff. But the best way to remember is Mrag, and then Endra, like drag, so Mrag, and then Endra.
Mragendra.
Yeah, I mean, I made a video about it. I did a pitch video for like a fellowship where I was like literally playing with this whole concept of how to say my name. And it's a great icebreaker. And it is adorable when my 3-year-old daughter says, like, he's my daddy, his name is Mragendra.
What does your name mean? Does it have a meaning?
So, yeah, it does. So in Sanskrit, Mrag means animal. And Indra is like a suffix. Whenever it's attached to any word, it makes the king of that thing. So my name is Mrag Indra, which means the king of animals. So that is lion. And now it's the funny, ironic coincidence, whatever you want to call it, is my last name is Singh, which also means lion. So lion times 2, so lion square. You can say that, yeah.
When you were born, did your father go up on a big cliff and like hold you out like this?
Oh, I wish.
Mragendra.
Yeah, but there's a funny thing. This is funny anecdote. He reminded me. Once in the village, I went with my dad for a walk, and I traditionally come from a family of like farmers who were like little above the like they're the landlords, I guess. Landlords. Yeah.
Yes.
So that actually happened to me. I remember I was like 8 or 9, and I went with my dad for a walk, and he literally said to me, like, as far as you can see, that all belongs to us.
Is our kingdom.
Yeah, and I was like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, but it's like belong to us as a family. I mean, a lot of people in the family. Yeah. He's like, it's basically his way of saying is like the universe has been good to us, so just be appreciative. Yeah.
Yes.
So that
Everything the light touches is our kingdom.
Is ours.
And you're
exactly.
like, oh, that's great. That's great. So I got a question for you. So you were from what part of, you're in India?
Yeah,
You were family?
I'm from India. I'm from a central part of India called Bhopal, um,
Mm-hmm.
and Bhopal is famous for, or rather infamous for, a gas disaster, like a chemical disaster in
Oh,
2 years before Chernobyl,
Mm.
and that was the I think still till date that's the deadliest,
Wow. Yeah.
um, but it was not as, I mean, the more people died, but it's not as long
as
lasting
known,
as
as
Chernobyl.
well
Right.
known. Yeah.
It was back in the day, but then Chernobyl took over. So
Yeah, then Chernobyl, and that
yeah,
was the focus of everything. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
I'm curious, just in terms of from going from where you're from to coming to America to doing film directing. I mean, what is the expectation on you as a son? I want to go direct film. Is that, was that
Oh,
like, great son, this is wonderful, or were you like, no, you're throwing your life away?
so yeah, it's very, like they say, like the path to your life is very tumultuous, and the more you live, the more surprised you are, like what you're gonna um, encounter in your life. For example, so I grew up in India.
Hmm.
My dad is he comes from a village where they didn't have a school. He was the only school they had. Like my dad was the first batch of his school, and they only had a school till like first or second grade. So then he has to leave, and he left his home to find his path
Hmm.
and end up. I mean, his story is like fascinating. He ended up becoming a doctor.
Amazing.
And then, so when I was born, so I was like, oh my God, these are huge shoes to fill. And I was like, not like that much into studies. I was like, I was into arts and all of that, but I was, I couldn't like, but I couldn't pursue it because as a man child, you were supposed, like, especially when I grew up,
Hmm.
the emphasis was on like you have to be a provider, so you have to find, like, you have to be serious about life and this and that, da, da, da.
Right.
I'm not saying directing is not serious. It's definitely fun though.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I was like, I don't know what I want to do because the only examples I have was doctor, engineers, lawyers, or a business person. And I was like, okay, so which is the path of least resistance? I was like, okay, I can become a I can become an engineer. So that way, something, like I can do corporate jobs and make my
Hmm.
living through that. So I got into engineering, became an engineer, and then I was working. I actually had a corporate job. I was working in India, and I was like, this is not good. I need to get better at this. So in pursuit of growth, and I forgot that I forgot that there's a whole art thing I can do in my 20s, in my early 20s. So I was like, oh, I should go for higher studies, become like get a master's or something. So I came to States for masters in information technology, and I did that and got a job in Silicon Valley. I was working in Cisco systems, like I was working in the headquarters. Like it's like the perfect trajectory you can think of somebody coming from my background and like aspirations and stuff. And I was like, I'm not fulfilled.
Mm.
I
Right.
don't feel fulfilled. Uh, and that made me explore other options, what I want to do. I mean, I went to real estate seminars, like I was like, I'll do real estate, I'll make money, who cares. And then I went to like there were these games, and I went to salsa, and I like, God knows how much stuff I did, but none of that. I tried developing apps, but I was like, this is this it's if you don't have your passion, you're not going to
Yeah.
do it. The only thing I keep noticing again and again, that storytelling was pulling me. I
Mm.
love watching shows. I love watching movies. I mean, and that was from childhood too. Like I could go to watch a film just by myself. I don't need people. When I was 12 years old, I made a flip book animation just by drawing again and again and again. I wrote stories. I put plays up. And but every time when I tried to do it, like my studies came in the way. It's like, oh, you're not focusing on your math, science, and all
Hmm.
of that stuff. So that was always like put down. So the other day, I it was I was looking for another way to to explore like what can I do. And I was like, oh, I should like try filmmaking. I think I'll be good at it. I spoke to my then girlfriend, then who later became my wife, now my ex-wife, that we should go try. What do you think about going be PAs on a set? So because I found that on Google.com that there's a organization that is doing a TV show and they need production assistants. So we both showed up, and the show was shot for 8 subsequent weekends. And by the end of the weekend, 8th weekend, I have pretty much done every job possible on a set. So I got like a really good crash course on what the film production is about.
Mm.
And my ex-wife, she also got her start as a script supervisor there. So she learned script supervising and stuff. And then down the line, we moved to LA. I pursued in directing, and she became script supervisor. She's now still working in entertainment. And I pursued only writing and directing. I mean, I also do editing. Actually, I do editing now and here and there, just because sometimes you have to pay your bills as freelancers, you know.
Oh yeah. Well, I think editing makes you a better director. It made me a much better director.
100 times. 100
Yeah,
times.
I always said, I think all my film students, because I taught at the New York Film Academy, and every one of them I said, you have to direct your stuff. I mean, edit your stuff.
Edit your stuff.
Because now when I'm on set, I can know, like, if we have 20 minutes to do this, I'm like, I'm not going to use that shot. We don't need it. I need this shot and then this shot, because I'll just, I'll do a wipe here. I'll push it here. That's all I need.
Yeah.
And just better.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what gravitated me towards learning editing, because I know a lot of directors who don't know how to operate an editing software.
Yeah, it's travesty, really.
And I was like, wait, what? You don't know how to edit?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I mean, and they don't want to learn it too. I was like, why? Because I go, that's not. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people, and I was like, I think this is what I thought when I jumped. Like, if I can shoot a film, then I should be able to finish it.
Yep.
And that's why I run a post-production house also. So that way, like, we can do the post-work on our end. So have like, access to technicians, like, and artists, like colorists, sound engineers, and all of that. And it's like, yeah. I mean, you need to know how to finish a film. Like, if you have shot a film, it's unfair for your cast, crew, and anybody who has put their hard-earned money into your project, and you don't know how to finish it. So
I think I think every director, you should be able to write. You might not be the best writer in the world, but you should be able to understand storytelling, writing, and the narrative process, directing, working with actors, understanding the camera. And like you said, I worked every position. So, I mean, I've done stuff from wardrobe to makeup to hair to set design to everything. I've literally worked in almost every single department. I've done some visual effects, just so that when I know what I'm asking my team to do, I know how much time it takes to do it. I understand what I'm asking. Sometimes I know this job sucks. I know it's terrible, but we're going to need to do this. I'll even help you. I'm sorry you got to do it, but we need to do this. I know, because I hate that part. So, it makes you understand your team, and it helps you work better with your actors. And then, like you said, finishing. I mean, I've had times where I directed a project and somebody else edited it, and I wasn't even involved in that process. And when I see the final, I'm always disappointed. I'm always like, there's so many better shots we could have used. I did a whole section where I know that the heart of the story is missing. Like, it's not there. I'm like, oh gosh. So I can't imagine creating some of my own stuff and not finishing the story.
I mean, that's sometimes, but you don't always have control on that, you know.
Yeah, you don't.
So it's like that's a practice of letting go, which I'm still learning how to do.
Yeah, very hard. Well, I think that's, you said, it's like when it's I like to look at a film in three steps, right? So you have a screenplay that you write, and you have an idea in your head of how it goes. And essentially, for every movie or every commercial or TV show, you're making 3 separate shows. You make the written version of it, which you have in your mind, and then what you actually shoot. So if you can stop by the time that script's done and you're doing your production, there's nothing, like, the script's over. That part of the movie is done. Right. And if I keep trying to force that story on what I shot, I might end up being disappointed because you're fighting against it. So once that video is done, that's a separate film, you know. And then your edit, it's like, yeah, I wanted to do this when I wrote this, but it's not there. So
Yeah.
what's the best story I can tell with the things that I have at this moment? And you have to let go of each step of the process.
I agree with that. I think, especially in my experience, the more stuff I have made uh, over the years, I know exactly. I get the intuition of like based on the script, like what we can do,
Mm-hmm.
and I would have a very good idea of by looking at the film, like how we're going to shoot it, and once the film is shot, um, and how we're going to edit it. So I also do my own storyboards. Actually, that's another
Mm-hmm.
thing.
That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
great.
that kind of gives me insight into how to like how it's going to cut, and storyboarding happens after I do rehearsals, so that I know the blocking.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I mean
So
that's my
you do your storyboard after you've done the blocking, right?
yeah, because
That's one question that's hard, right? Which do you do your shot list first? Do you do your blocking first, or do you do your storyboard? Like which comes first?
I mean to
Whatever
me
you're.
I mean to me so like reading a script, you have a very good idea of how the script is going to play out, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I on the script I make small boxes to see like, okay, this is like a preliminary idea that
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is what I'll see, but I never tell this to actors, and I want actors, specifically in narrative content, I want actors to come up with their interpretation of it, because
Mm-hmm.
75% of time they are on point.
Yep.
Because these are professional actors, they understand the story, they understand the art and structure, and then there's like certain things we have to just maneuver, so that makes my job easier as a director, because the
Mm-hmm.
first thing, you hire people based on a talent and you need to trust them that they could deliver.
Yeah.
Right,
Once
right.
you have that kind of respect, then actors also want to work with you. They also want to come and work with you, and then explore the story together. I mean, there are
Mm-hmm.
things like actors have told me, I don't think my character is going to say this line, and I was like, okay, so what do you think your character should say? And then they'll give me a line, and I was like, okay, so now you have said this. Now give me the intention behind it. Why the character would say this, or
Mm-hmm.
this has happened, and then I will see how it ties to this thing, and then we can like, and if they can actually come up and convince me, I'll change the line. It's not a big
Mm-hmm.
deal, because
Yep.
what's at the end of the day, if it serves the purpose of the story,
Yeah.
we should do it.
Yep.
Sometimes I would like try two different takes of okay, you say it this way, and then you say it this way. How
Yep.
about this? So
Yeah.
all of these things will come, and then once I have an idea of how the blocking work, and I mean, so far I generally have an idea like how the location is going to look like. So we we rehearse based on that. But
Mm-hmm.
if not, then I keep like loose stories. Like okay, so I want mainly like where I'm going to cut. That's what the storyboard is for. So like I need to have this in a close up, this in a wide for sure. So like
Mm-hmm.
four of these, and then when we go on set, and then after that, I'll sit with my DP, and then we're going to make a short list. Once
Mm-hmm.
I sat with the DP, and I stressed that person out a lot because we had to shoot 58 shots in one day.
No, well, that's a big day,
Mm.
Yeah, and I was like, and
especially
the thing was,
narrative.
it's a narrative, and the thing was, it was, I was like, okay, we need this, but and then I have a whole plan of it, like how we can, and actually we were able to do it without sacrificing the performances.
Mm-hmm.
But the number like was really big, so they got like a little stressed on the set. But I was like, don't worry, I've done this before, we can do it, we can get it done, and we were able to pull
Mm-hmm.
it off. Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, so it's like, so but like having that clarity is very important as a director, because
Yep.
I do my homework 10 times harder than anybody else.
Yeah. Same. Hours and hours and hours
Yeah,
I spend
it's
before
like,
I even get there.
yeah, because some people say like the stuff you do in private, and like the development you do, so when you actually take it out in the world, then it makes sense to a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
like why we're moving the camera. And I'm not a big proponent of moving the camera until it's motivated by an
Necessary.
intention. Yeah. so
Hmm.
it's like
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, I'm like, why are we moving the camera? Why I mean, with it's like, okay, let's move the camera. Like, and I like moving camera shot, but like it becomes more engaging if the camera is moving with the intention, unless and like rather than effect, because certain time, oh, it looks cool. I'm telling you, like there's so many shots I've seen. I was like, oh, this looks super cool. It's like, but does it tell the story?
And does it take you out? Sometimes I'm watching a story and it's an
Distract
amazing
you.
shot, but it pulls me out and makes me aware I'm watching a movie.
Yeah.
And so I thought, wow, it's a beautiful shot, but it literally just took me out of the story. And now I'm paying attention to this gorgeous shot. And I think sometimes you're like, yeah, did that serve the purpose of the story? And I think, like you said, there's an element of humility to storytelling. I think because I have a vision of something I want, but I'm ultimately there to serve the story.
Yeah.
And those choices I make in order to do my job well, I have to put myself aside, what I think is incredible, and say, like you said, why move the camera? Because it'll look cool. This will look great. No, like it does not serve what's happening.
Yeah.
And there's that element of you have to set yourself aside and remember what's the ultimate goal. I serve the audience and I serve the story first and foremost.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's fascinating. So when in terms of determining kind of what stories you want to do, what appeals to you, and what do you do your own stories, or if you found others, and what motivates you to tell a specific story?
Oh, there's a lot of things. So like in my stories, I'm working on telling stories of true human experience, like the things that are like sometimes could be called tabooed or oh, let's put it that way. Like I want to tell stories that evoke empathy in people,
Mm-hmm.
because it's easy for us to look from distance and judge and make comments on things, but when you're actually going through some of this stuff, it's really challenging. Like everybody has seven problems when they think about it, right?
Right.
Something is always going off and on. Like everybody is. But if we see everybody with the eye of compassion, then the world would be a better place now. So that's the kind of stories I'm interested in telling. And it took me time, because I do love genre films and I do want to get back to genre soon. Um, uh, However, I just diverted since 2015 to focus on drama and the things and the stories that I felt were important. Because even if you're telling like a story, it has a message of a certain kind. I mean, specifically for my film Normal, those stories about the postpartum state of a relationship, but it was also bringing a South Asian perspective to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are these stories which we are. I mean, this was my like to normalize our existence in America as immigrants, because there is one thing that I feel is we are stereotyped into different boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And anecdote for that, like I remember I came to States and the one thing I wanted to do was like, oh, I want to try something different in here. So there was an audition happening for a play. I went and did an audition and I got the part of the doctor because I'm the only Indian person that showed up. I did that play.
He's a doctor.
Doctor.
Yeah, and it has substantial amount of lines, and it was the character, but like and as an Indian person who barely, like my ears are not used to listen to American accent, So I was like, oh, that would be good practice for me to like foray into the world and just like see like and get acclimated with everything that is going on in terms of like talking and stuff. So I was casted as doctor, and I start seeing this as a pattern, and then certain movies I saw, and I was like, yeah, but in India we have Bollywood in India. I mean, Indian film industry. Bollywood is a misnomer because it's in Bombay, but it's like it's not like a very kosher word anymore. Yeah, so so there's a Hindi film industry, and they have a set. There's specific kind of films they make, but then there's the parallel art scene where they make art house films. Those are more like in line with the art indies here. And I was like, yeah, but there are like good films coming out of India. but whenever we see anything come from West, unless it's a very small scale indie, they are all like there was this character named Taj Mahal in what's the Wayne Wilder or that Ryan Reynolds film? I don't know if you remember.
No.
Wayne.
Which film?
It's called Wayne Wilder, I think.
Wind Rider?
No, Wayne Wilder or do you
Oh, Van
remember
Wilder.
Van Wilder.
Wayne Wilder, right? Yeah. So it has a South Asian character. Then there's a Short Circuit film. They had like a South Asian character, but they apparently it's a character who this is a white actor and they paint him brown.
They're like, we don't have any indie actors here right
I was
now.
like,
What do we
"Wait,
do?
what?" and then of course the accent, the head nod, and like it's all like stereotypical stuff.
Yes.
So I was like, yeah, but like, what about our stories? Like, I mean, I came to States. I do
Right.
watch Super Bowl. You know,
Yeah.
I do like to do this stuff. Like I'm assimilated. Like people come and say like, oh, you didn't grow up here? It's like, no. Can you hear? It's like, no, we cannot because I'm so assimilated now. Like, I mean, I do have an accent, but like when I go back, people say, oh, you have American accent. When I'm here, people say you have an Indian accent. But I think
You're like, I can't win.
yeah, but I have this accent where people can understand what I'm trying to communicate.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is what so and so it's like so telling our stories in that way, like, okay, so normalize our existence other than the stereotypes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and that was the basis of this film. The next film I'm going to make, Still Here. That's a premise of that on the backdrop of the school shooting, of backdrop of the victims of school shooting. So that's much more.
That's a comedy, right?
Yeah, it's actually it's not that dramatic, to be honest. It has a thriller edge to it, but it's like it's a story of people who are grieving and they're coming out, so they're trying to act as normal as they can.
Yeah,
That's a noble pursuit, though. Approaching filmmaking from basically being able to put the audience in somebody else's shoes to help them understand and have compassion, and that's a powerful thing. But it's really a noble pursuit as well, because this industry can be used for all kinds of things, and you're using it to basically help people understand to get along and basically learn how to love each other, and that's great.
Yeah. I mean, that's the best way of putting it. I mean, you put it so beautifully than I could ever do.
Well, I'm an eloquent speaker, so
yes, you are, sir. You are.
Yeah. So I like that. I think for me, the most impacts that I've ever had in my life have always come from stories. You know, whether it was biblical stories or whether it was fables or tales or whether it was films, it was always the best moment to be able to relate to someone. And when we communicate to each other, it's always the story that gets people. You know, a room filled with people can be watching one person telling a story. How often do they talk about some random thing and people are paying attention? They don't. But the moment that person starts telling a story, we're all like, like, what's he saying? What's the story? So it's powerful. It's so powerful.
So powerful.
It is. I mean, in all my life, when I was down, I always turned back to films. I always turned back to books, fiction, because it was able to make me empathize with the different characters, and then give me hope.
Yeah,
because that's what we do, right? We're storytellers. That's what they're folk tales. That's what the people did back in the day. Still, we do it all the time. I'm telling you right now my story.
Right.
You're telling me your experiences. That's your story, and we are communicating. Like that's very important thing. We remember things because of these stories. Like we add emotion to a fact, it becomes a story.
Yeah, and I think it's always the point of connection. I think I think I've been to about 40 something countries now, and I know people wherever you go, they're essentially the same. There's different cultural aspects, but we all love our family. We all want to laugh. We all have good food. We all like to dance. We want something to we want our lives to matter and have significance. And there's connecting points for all of us where we relate to one another. And a good storyteller can take different people with different connecting points and in the story find those moments where the characters connect with each other and with the audience. And if you can take them on that journey and you give us the challenges of the overcoming and we hit those connection points that builds to the greatest connecting point, that's the climax, where everyone's like, you got goosebumps all over your whole body and you are in that moment where we are all together. And you're on that journey with them. That's the most exciting part about a story. And if you can do that, you'd like there's no greater feeling for me of achieving what I'm really here on earth to do. And there's something magical and powerful about it. And I can't picture my life without it. I just can't imagine not doing it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's Steve Jobs said, like, you can connect out backwards, right? I mean, if you had asked me in India when I was like 17 or 18 that I'll be making films one day, I was like, I don't know. I don't know how to do it tomorrow.
No, like how? How would I ever do that? Like, where would I even start?
Like, crazy?
Right.
It's like, oh, that's not for us. And now I'm doing it. So.
But it's interesting too that many people find that, especially people that have gone into other careers and then they either retire and then start doing something they love, they always go back to what they did in childhood, something connected to what they did in childhood. And I think that's really awesome that you got to figure this out earlier, and you've still got a lot of time to do this and explore this, because Mr. Rogers a long time ago said that play is the work of childhood, and that it's actually preparing you to do what you're supposed to do in life. And so you've been able to discover that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people have a hard time connecting with that, saying, I don't know what I want to do. Like, I don't know what my purpose is or what I'm called to do. And I think that the real challenge, I've even had that with my daughter. She's like, I don't know. There's a lot of things I like, but there's not one thing that has really like called me to do this. And so I think, like you said, it's often related to like what things bring you joy when you're playing. What do you do when you play? And then what it's associated very strongly with your purpose. If finding that purpose, why you are here, why you exist. And a lot of people are afraid to ask that question. It's like, and I think as filmmakers, a lot of times I feel that that's what the story does, is you're determining what that person's purpose is. You always have to give them, why are they doing this? What do they want? I mean, if you don't have a character that has a strong desire, they're not going to overcome anything and they're not going anywhere. So you always have to determine a purpose for every character in the story. But we don't do that for our own lives sometimes. Like we don't want to ask that question. It's scary.
Yeah. Have you ever used your storytelling to solve your personal problems? Like, as you're like working on a script and suddenly it's like, oh, I could do this to me and then this could fix.
I had that whole thing for a movie called Crashing Hearts, because the same way for me, I had a divorce a long time ago. My wife had left and I wrote a film called Crashing Hearts after that. And the whole thing was just me problem solving. Like, it was like the setup of the stories. And I remember one time I was so broken. I'd come home after this long trip and I had my daughter with me, and my wife at that time hadn't told me she was leaving. I didn't know. And she'd left me 2 years before, but hadn't finalized anything, and said, I'll be back. Maybe I don't know if I'll be back. And I came home. She said, hey, why don't you take Ariana with you to go out of state and to see your family? And I was like, great. So I went and I came back. I dropped her off. I was really excited. I ran into my house. I got upstairs and I recognized the house was empty. So while I'd taken the child, she come and cleaned everything out. Like, all of her stuff was gone, all of my daughter's stuff. And I just, my knees broke and I fell to the ground and I was weeping. I was so broken. And in that moment, all of a sudden I was like, this would be a great shot. I was like, I'd come up the stairs. This guy's crying his eyes out. I'm like, we push in slowly on him. I'm like, and I'm thinking like a director. I'm like, oh, there's good emotion in this scene. I was like, and then I thought, what's wrong with you, dude?
No, I think we all have done it. Like I said to me, my friend, that I was going through last 2021, 22. 2021 and 22 was hard for me. And I was going through it. And I was like, one thing is the silver lining. At the tail end of it, I'll be a great artist and a filmmaker.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's showing in my work, like current scripts I'm working on, and it's like, it's coming from much more place of like empathy and like understanding of characters. Like I mean, it's funny. It's kind of like ironic. What my first feature that I wrote 3 years prior to having my child became my reality 5 years after in making.
Mm-hmm.
And the next script which I wrote about the family that breaks apart after a school shooting has elements of what I went through last 2 years that I written before. It's
Yep.
like it's a weird way of me like projecting or predicting what my life's going to be through my films,
Yes.
but it also kind of like gives me an intuition to deal with it in the right way that would service everybody involved.
Yep. And the people watching the film.
And the people, I mean,
Because that's true. It's just, I mean, your story now serves as a light for other people who are following the steps behind you. It's
Yep, you're helping them write their own stories.
Yeah, I'm getting text messages since movie came on Tubi since February, and I'm getting text messages or Facebook messages or WhatsApp messages every day of people telling me how this film has moved them, or like I just got a message from a friend. They just had a baby and they watched a movie, and there was a scene came where the woman talks about, like, I'm not going to spoil the kind of insecurities and stuff, and this new mom actually started crying about it, and the good part of it was she had these feelings, but she felt like so bad for having those, but because of the film they were actually able to have an open dialogue. So he was like, your art is really good, you should keep doing what you're doing, and that kind of like gave her a safe space to vent, which definitely going to help their relationship and the relationship of mother and child. I'm not taking any claim, or like what if for any claim for it, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think it will definitely be good for them going on. And like I remember when we premiered in LA, and there was like a lot of people. They came and they like, you made me feel stuff, and I was like, I'll say, is it a good thing or bad thing? It's like, it's good for you, but I was like really emotionally invested. And if people don't like it, it's fine, but at least you're feeling something, because feeling is very important, I feel.
Yeah.
If you don't feel, if you're like the worst review you can get, like, what do you think of the movie?
Yeah, it was all right.
It's all right. No, I don't want that. I want like,
Yeah.
oh, it changed me, or it's like, oh, I hated this.
Yeah.
This could not never happen, and this could not happen, and this is like this. I want that kind of engagement from
Right.
anything I'm creating, rather than, because people like to play safe, and if you know me so far, like, I never play safe. I would just
It's to be like if you serve mashed potatoes without any salt or pepper or gravy, and it's like, I made mashed potato. How is it? Like, I mean, it's okay. But if you put the butter, the salt, and you got bacon on it, they're like, that's not supposed to have bacon. They're like, it has bacon. At least they're talking about it. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's good. It's good to see. It's good to have that feedback sometimes, because it kind of like enforces you, like, okay, I'm making something that people are relating to. Like in your case, like what you saw as a filmmaker, right? Like you used your trauma to tell other people that it's okay. Everything will work out. Not how you suppose it's going to work out, or
Never does how you. Yep.
But it will work out. You will. This is here a learning experience. I mean, and I mean, I'm really big into self-help, in the sense like we need to feel positive, because if we are not feeling positive, then, or not positive, like negativity actually kills creativity. David Lynch says that, and I believe it, because when you're not feeling 100%, the art's going to come out of it is not, you will not be invested in the art. So there's the whole concept of torture artists, but like, I want to enjoy my art. Like, this is how I see it. Like, especially films, like it's a lot of passion, and it takes, you know how long it takes to make a film, to get it lit, to get like to get it greenlit, then get it made, and then finishing it, distributing it, and then have people watch it. It's like,
every step of the way is like any
Big
of them
process.
anything
Like,
could go wrong in that whole process.
I mean,
and you're the
yeah.
one who's responsible. It's like, yeah. I think,
It's
and I
like,
think so. In my mind, at a certain point, a story takes on a life of its own, and it becomes less about me and more about the story. And I think sometimes I've done some stuff that had been done maybe 10 years ago that wasn't as resonating with the audience at that time, but now 10 years later, it's more powerful and impactful. So I think it's like what you said. There's a guy, maybe there's a dude who watches your film. It's like, oh, it wasn't for me. It's not my story. I don't connect with it. But then he goes through the trauma and he comes back to this film again. I guarantee it's going to be an entirely different movie for him. Like, it's going to mean something. So I think, telling a story from experience is connecting a story with an experience with something you care about and characters you care about is, I think that's the greatest way to ensure that you create something that is timeless, right? It's a story that exists after you're gone. And maybe, 50, 60, 100 years from now, people are still watching your movie because it's timeless. You've created something genuine that connected with an audience versus, sometimes I'm not saying entertainment is bad. Like, we want to be entertained, but a lot of entertainment, like you said, mashed potatoes with no stuff in it, it's forgotten and it's gone, and no one ever speaks about it again. But those films that really resonate and create that dialogue, those are things that live on and, hopefully are impacting future generations as well as our own today. And it's something that lives on after we're gone. And
that's the beauty of it. Like, I mean, it's like picking up an author from 1800s and reading their book.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, so sometimes I read and I was like, oh, I wonder, like, somebody actually was writing it, and how was their day like when they wrote this page? Like, did they wake up feeling groggy, or were they like in their best mood? Did they have coffee back then? I'm sure.
Yeah. Did they have a deadline? Were they under pressure?
Like, how was working? How was or this beautiful love? Like something. I think it was Oscar Wilde I was reading, and I was like, oh, and because I was like, oh, what was his personal affairs going at that time? Because he was closeted at that point, right? Like, and he was tried before that. So I was like, I wonder how his brain was working when he was writing this beautiful writing and whatnot, and then he's like, oh, I'm probably gonna get killed soon because I just had the feelings for this person and that person and that,
Yeah.
It's like that. I always think, like, when I read something and there's like, or watch, like, or today, like, they're shooting this shot today. I wonder what the actors are going through or the directors going through, what's happening in their personal life that day. And then just sometimes it just kind of like brings, like, it's so easy. And it's so, because we all are human beings, so we are storytellers, and that's how we communicate. And then, so I don't know where I'm going with that. I just took a different train to somewhere else.
No, I like it. I think art's like an anchor, right?
Yeah, there's things that don't change throughout time, and what the story can do is it can help you identify with history in those different generations, because the story is the same and you discover the world in which that same story is taking place, and you see the differences there. So it's really kind of cool. It's almost like it's a teacher. I love watching old films. I love the old stories, because those feelings that you identify with actually are what connects you to that other time where you can feel like you've traveled. It's a time travel, basically.
Yeah, and sometimes things stay the same. The last weekend I saw, like, 10 years ago, is Billy Wilder's, and I was like, wow, it's literally, you can watch it now, and it has like similar texture. I mean, it's black and white.
Yeah.
Like, little things are different, but like most of this stuff is same.
Yeah, well, the things that are different are the seasoning. Like, to me, like, it's the same thing with race. Race and culture are the seasoning that makes life and texture so rich.
Yes.
But the base things is we're still eating food. We all eat it. And so the same, like, we all need nutrients, and it has existed since the beginning of time. I mean, I read poetry and prose, or even like things from, like, even if you read Sun Tzu, or if you read something from a European authors, or even Dostoevsky or Tolstoy, that it doesn't matter. Like, you can connect to all of them, but the cultural lenses are how they view their experience. But the experiences we can all relate to. It does not matter. And so I think it's like you said, for your character specifically, why is there no deeper characters that I as an Indian can relate to that are that part of that human story, as opposed to being you're a caricature of yourself as opposed to a character in a story. And that's brilliant being able to read it. One of my favorite, I think, films I saw was Slumdog Millionaire. That really gave me a look behind the curtain in a sense of what storytelling can be like in India and how different it is. And that was one of the first Indian films. I'd seen a couple Superman. I saw the Indian Superman where I thought was brilliant.
Was that amazing green screen, right?
Yeah, it was a green screen and he just stands like this and they turn him sideways. He flies through all these cars and they just blow up everywhere. I was like, yes.
Yeah. That was I think that's a song, right? You're talking about?
Yeah, I think it's like a song. It's set to a musical piece.
And there was a girl in the Spider-Man outfit without the face mask too. He was dancing.
Oh yeah, I've seen that too. Yeah. Back in the 80s. Yeah.
It's an old one. It was hilarious. Well, I think it's some of that flair is really cool. That like, okay, even in Indian films, like doing the musical numbers at the end of the pieces, and even the songs for whatever reason. So if you look at some of American musicals, the songs are had been generally related sequentially to a time in the story that was almost like a segue to something else. Whereas in Indian films, the song is inspired by the emotion of the moment. And those pieces that come were for me, I'm like, whoa, wait, why are we okay? It's related directly to that emotional moment before, and then in the end, like the celebration of the story at the end of the film while the credits are rolling. It's just different. It's seasoning, right?
Actually, there's a lot of my friends. They like my Indian friends who look down upon Bollywood or like the Indian films because of the song and dance. But I'm going to put this point because I think there's a different art form, and I like how you said like the song actually comes for the emotion.
Yes,
and that has been because like the moment you said it in my brain, there are like 50 different films and different moments came, and I was like, oh yeah, that song made sense there. That song made sense there, and they're actually like you see like they're in Mumbai, and then cut to they're in Switzerland dancing on something totally different. And you're like, what's going on? But like when you're in your dream state, when you're elated emotion, you are wherever you want to be in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so beautiful, because it's not sequential, it's emotional, and it's related to the experience of the inner side of them, and it's projected outwardly for us to enjoy. So I was always fascinated with those parts of storytelling, why they're different and what makes them different. And if you look at the pattern overall, it's when you take a bird's eye view of a collective group that you can begin to see elements of storytelling elements and how they relate to express a culture. And those are the pieces I think you see when you do that. It's enjoyable. I like it. Like maybe I don't like that particular movie or that particular piece, but overall you can get a bird's eye view of it and see something different.
As a concept is great. Yeah. And I mean, there are some good musicals too. Like Indian musicals, which over the years I've seen. I mean, they're like very pulpy and pop culture-y, but they're fun. Like there was this new movie came out, Pathaan, and I just went and watched it twice. I was like, yeah, why not? Like, I mean, it's over the top action sequence and this and that, and I was like, yeah, who cares?
Yeah,
just watch it. It's fun.
I think that's right. Like you said, sometimes it's just fun. Like it's to enjoy and laugh and have a good time. Like, so some people's like, was it a good movie? I'm like, define a good movie. Did I have fun? Did I like it? Did I laugh and have a great time? Then yes, it was an amazing movie. But was the story structure great? Were the characters deep? Was it emotionally impactful? No, but I liked it. I watched it 3 times, like you said.
They were like cardboard cutouts. I'm not even kidding, character wise.
That's
he's a bad guy, he's a good guy, and this and that. And the twist was the bad guy used to be a good guy at one point. I was like, oh my god,
super twist. I bet that was like right out of nowhere.
It's such a fun movie, and like it's effects galore, because the thing is like all the effects work is being done in India.
Yes.
So they have these technicians. I was like, they shouldn't use their so they have the workforce there already, so they're making all these movies. Like, I mean, RRR, I don't know if you've seen RRR, like the film that won the best song for at Academy.
Oh no, I didn't see.
Yeah, so RRR is a film that like blew up because there's like a lot of reasons, but because I saw it last year, and suddenly it was running for Oscars. People are like, nominate RRR for international Oscars. I was like, what is going on? And if you want to see effects works from India, I would say watch these two movies, Pathan and RRR. Like
Pathan
and RRR. Yeah, these two films, like, I was like taken away, blown away by how seamless the effects are, and it's going to get better from here.
Yeah, amazing.
Also, I give concession to the industry because I know they're not as advanced as stuff here is. But like, I was like blown away. I was like, wow, this is like really, they came a long way. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of companies that we've even used that are from there that are creating elements of and visual effects for rendering farms. Lots of huge render farms are doing there, and there's lots of. I mean, it's almost like they're really merging together in a huge way. Whether you're shooting in Vancouver, whether they're doing pickup stuff from India, whether it's coming from even Ukraine. We've done a number of some groups from Ukraine that we're also doing, and so I like that it's a universal process almost. And one thing that's nice about working with people overseas is while you're sleeping, they can still be doing renders and cuts and edits. So when you wake up in the morning, you've got something to look at. It's actually makes sense,
Yeah, it does make sense. It does make sense. I think there's so much talent in the world, and that's the best way of utilizing it.
Yeah.
And down the line, when I'm working in that industry also, I would love to bridge the gap myself. Yeah.
Oh, I hate to stop you here, but we're out of time for today's show.
Cam, he's not even talking yet. We're right in the middle of it.
Okay, but my clock says we're out of time.
All right, I guess if your clock says we're out of time, that must mean we're out of time. But sorry, the good news is you get to find out more next week when when we have our incredible guest back to talk more.
Mragendra Singh.
Yes, Mragendra
he might even sing for us.
Do you think he's going to sing?
I don't know if he's going to sing. We didn't ask him.
He might.
Does he sing?
Well, I don't know. Next week, we're going to look at his film. He's actually going to do a scene-by-scene analysis of some of the stuff he did. So, you're going to want to see that.